Raw this week was one of the worst pro wrestling experiences of my life. How they can deliver such high quality on Fridays and yet be so terrible on Mondays is baffling to me. There was no coherent storyline, it was literally just a jumble of crap thrown together. There were outtakes that were actually shown as proper recordings, and the women got about 10 minutes total in 3 hours. With a full breakdown of this and a lot of news that was first reported over on Twitch during the live show, I'm Tom Colohue and this is the WWE Raw review. Make sure to click like and let's get started. Raw started with Drew McIntyre now wearing a Rangers shirt because they're the champions now. Drew would be interviewed by Mackenzie Mitchell, asking him about the bounty that was placed on his head last week by Bobby Lashley. This wouldn't factor in any way for the next 2 hours. We then went down to the ring where Bobby Lashley intentionally broke up the Hurt Business, beat up Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, resulting in a match between Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley later in the night, right in the middle of Raw. So you had to wait an hour for this, and it was okay. Shelton Benjamin was made to look very good in this match, Bobby Lashley was made to look a bit crap. This is going to be a recurring theme that we come back to later. At this point it feels pointless breaking up the Hurt Business, and it feels like it's going to hurt Bobby Lashley in the long run. MVP is sticking with Bobby Lashley. He was on commentary all night with Samoa Joe apparently unavailable for this recording. But it's a situation whereby Bobby Lashley still has someone to talk to him, but he no longer has backup. That makes him more of a face, but at the same time he's acting like a heel throughout and he's up against Drew McIntyre. Are we supposed to cheer Bobby Lashley or not? Because they're really not making it very clear. Matt Riddle rolled around backstage on his scooter and was involved in some of the worst segments of the show. Primarily he went up to Titus O'Neil. Titus O'Neil announced that he would be hosting WrestleMania alongside Hulk Hogan. You will hear many name drops of Hulk Hogan during this night as the WWE engage in propaganda to make you like him again before WrestleMania. I'm not going to. Adam Pearce was asked what the hell his job is in WWE if he's not an authority figure. He couldn't answer that because nobody knows. Sheamus, who granted us mercy by beating up Matt Riddle backstage during his segment with Titus O'Neil, came down to the ring for a non-title match against Riddle. The writing was really on the wall for this one, and I did report exactly what was going to happen in my preview show on Twitch, which was Sheamus winning the non-title match and then the match being announced as a title match for WrestleMania on the Sunday. This was a good match, given plenty of time and with a bit of a shoot style as regards Matt Riddle and what he was delivering to Sheamus. Sheamus obviously can engage in that as well, and he did not win with a bro kick, instead a knee to the face. A solid knee and a good looking knee. Sheamus needed this win, and honestly I suspect this would have been Keith Lee versus Sheamus if not for the fact that Keith Lee became unavailable at Elimination Chamber. For me, now that it is Riddle versus Sheamus, Sheamus will be taking the championship away. But this was a showing of quality for the two of them, and I can expect good things at WrestleMania. Shane McMahon read Braun Strowman's report card. I'm guessing it's the same guy writing this as the guy who wrote about the dog food segments with Corbin and Roman. Braun then beat the hell out of Jackson Riker, which is fine by me, and announced that it was going to be a steel cage match between he and Shane at WrestleMania. What we can expect from that is definitely Shane McMahon coming off the top of the cage, because it's WrestleMania and it's Shane McMahon. I also wouldn't be too surprised to see Shane McMahon on top of the cage and Braun Strowman bodily lifting the cage away from the ring. That would be a very Braun Strowman thing to do. Miz and Morrison were sat in the ring and announced their new music video Hey Hey Hop Hop, which was alright. I mean, it was okay. The bunny costumes made me feel a little bit queasy though. I mean, I don't want to kink shame here, that's becoming a recurring theme in these videos, but I'm not really there for the bunny costumes. Damian Priest and Bad Bunny did come down to the ring, and Bad Bunny was able to throw a punch and take the Miz down before the segment ended. It was a much better punch than the previous one. It's good to see Damian Priest back. Obviously he only took a week off, but as far as I know and as far as I reported I think a week ago on Twitch, John Morrison is simply unavailable due to injury right now. I don't know the status of Damian Priest, but I know John Morrison isn't available, and that's why the tag team match isn't happening. This is news that was reported a week ago during the watch along on Monday Night Raw. As an aside, on the Friday we talked about Logan Paul. The news got reported on the Sunday, but we talked about it on the Friday. Randy Orton delivered a very good promo backstage, essentially running down the history of the match between he and Bray Wyatt going into WrestleMania. It's really convoluted and doesn't make much sense. That came across. Later on, Alexa Bliss would do much the same thing. And the same thing really happened. Very convoluted, doesn't make a lot of sense, that's quite clear at this point. AJ Styles and Omos came down to a game night hosted by Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. When they briefly encountered each other backstage beforehand, Xavier Woods was holding a sheet of paper, which when he rolled it back said, "We miss Big E." For real. And it was quite telling and quite a powerful moment, considering he then went on to advertise Up Up Down Down, which must have some sort of deal with the WWE now, not be purely owned by Xavier Woods, because they're using Up Up Down Down in marketing and sponsorship. Game night was okay for what it was. I actually quite enjoyed it, even though it was a little bit ridiculous. It was childish humour, and really it was all meant to show that Omos is not going to engage in any of that. He's just going to beat people up, which he did. We got a pretty good match between AJ Styles and Xavier Woods. This is a dream match of mine, but they have to give it time and they have to let it go. They didn't here. Hopefully at WrestleMania we see a lot more of this before Omos comes in, beats everyone up and wins the Tag Team Championships solo. Omos essentially now is what Braun Strowman should be. As we entered the third hour, Drew McIntyre threw a load of people around backstage, and then we ended up with a main event of Ricochet versus Drew McIntyre. I feel bad for Ricochet in this particular scenario, but Drew basically did the Aleister Black thing of saying, "Who is going to pick a fight with me?" And someone eventually did, but they didn't. Drew challenged him. Naomi beat Shayna Baszler in about 2 minutes because of distractions from the outside. Shayna Baszler's losing streak at this point is a bit ridiculous. Shayna Baszler at this point has lost 5 singles matches in a row. Her last win came against Lana on February 15th. It's not very good, is it? In the continuing adventures of Matt Riddle approached Asuka backstage, said some things, forgot his lines, walked away in the middle of the segment, and that actually made it into Monday Night Raw. Who fucked that one up? Rhea Ripley and Asuka signed their contract in a segment that lasted all of 5 minutes. Rhea Ripley was able to get over a bit of her character, Asuka played up to her confidence, and Rhea Ripley delivered, eventually picking up the table, which Asuka knelt down into to take it full in the face. Asuka went down and just laid on her front in the middle of the ring. Meanwhile, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler came down to challenge Rhea Ripley and Asuka to a match next week, which they accepted, or which Rhea accepted for them. What is with the WWE that the only way they can build a women's championship match at WrestleMania is to have the two opponents team together to take on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler? Why are none of the women's title matches anything to do with the women competing in them? For our final segment, Drew McIntyre let Ricochet get a few hits in and then pinned him within about 3 minutes. This was followed by Mustafa Ali attacking him from behind. Mustafa Ali beat the hell out of him before Drew McIntyre eventually got a counter in, hit one big move and beat Mustafa Ali within about 5 minutes. Then he called down Bobby Lashley, who duly answered, and Baron Corbin attacked Drew McIntyre from behind. Baron Corbin. Bobby Lashley would then join in, lock in the Hurt Lock repeatedly, and just keep shaking him until the clock eventually wound down. It was slow and it was dull by the end of it. They definitely gave this segment a bit too long, and it just wasn't that exciting. Baron Corbin though, Baron Corbin. Did not see that one coming. Because it's ridiculous. This was one hell of a Raw. Raw this week was essentially a perfect example of how not to book a wrestling show. There was no coherent thread going through the entire show. Segments and storylines were forgotten for hours. The women got nothing to work with. There was a few scattered good moments. I enjoyed Sheamus versus Riddle. I enjoyed Game Night. I didn't hate what happened with The Miz and Bad Bunny. But your top level storylines are floundering, and you've only got one more show until WrestleMania to make them hot again. And this Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre is going nowhere. I'm confident this means that next week our main event will be Drew McIntyre versus Baron Corbin, who is looking increasingly like he doesn't have a match for WrestleMania. There was a plan for Baron Corbin. Looks like at the moment it's not coming through because maybe they can't get someone to fly in that they are trying to get to fly in. Either way, Drew McIntyre will undoubtedly finish the show, the go-home show for Raw, standing tall and standing dominant. But how long that's going to last, we'll have to wait and see. My suspicion is that Drew McIntyre will be winning the championship back at WrestleMania and then losing it again as soon as there are no fans. McIntyre will still get his crowning moment, but Lashley long term will continue to be the champion. That makes 3 reigns for Drew McIntyre in the space of just over a year. That's a pretty good record for me. Let's have him drop out of the top storylines just for a little bit at least. Let me know what you thought of Raw down in the comments. Every like and every comment does help this channel grow, so I'm really appreciative of it. I've been Tom Colohue, and I will see you next time.